This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. Just want to take a sec here to let people know, in case you missed the announcement on the news, there is a boil water advisory indoor valve. It's in effect right now. They're asking you to boil your water for at least a minute before using it. So again, indoor valve boil water advisory. It is on now. I'll update you on that again at the bottom of the hour at 4:30. Jim, the debate is tonight. I love the question because I'm so much on top of this in terms of agreeing with what you think. You asked the question at this point, does tonight leaders' debate even matter?
Yeah, and it's great because you have obviously fallen into my cleverly set trap. Because, you look at it, you look at the polls. I mean, the CAQ and Legault, they're hovering between 38-40%. Remember the good old days when the Liberals used to be nailed to 20% and people said, what's going on? What went on is they went down to 18. Latest poll has them at about 16. In a dead heat with the Conservatives and a dead heat with Quebec Solidaire. And you'd say, what is the point? These people are just going to repeat themselves. We saw this show last week. But what's really interesting, Aaron, is that with all these numbers, there's one that sticks out. It's very, very important. That number is 1.5 million. That was the audience for last week's face-à-face debate. And in fact, at its height, the audience was at 1.7 million. I mean, that's close to one Quebecer out of every four. Now, yes, face-à-face has that kind of reputation, draws a big audience. But what happened that night? As we've discussed, it wasn't really there were no knockout punches. But the thing is, it was notable because François Legault spent an inordinate amount of time punching himself in the face. A lot of people considered that his performance was lackluster. He seemed cranky compared to, say, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, the PQ, who a lot of people said really shone that night, and as well as Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois of Quebec Solidaire. And in fact, when Léger does a snap poll in the wake of the debate, I mean, 18% of the audience or the respondents say Nadeau-Dubois won. Followed by Saint-Pierre Plamondon. Here's Premier of Quebec, François Legault, scored 9%. So I'm not entirely sure whether things could change. I'm not saying that, François Legault is going to be out of a job on October 4th. But given the interest shown in the last debate, given what happened in that last debate, and given that, there is that kind of, that mystery element surrounding Legault, if a lot of people tune in to figure out, what's he going to do next? What crazy business is he going to engage in next? Listen, that could have an effect. Not on the CAQ's chances of forming a government, but certainly in how the opposition is formed, and indeed perhaps the size of the CAQ majority. There are some ridings where it's not necessarily a cakewalk; it's close. If there's enough vote splitting towards the PQ, we could have some surprises on the evening of October 3rd. So all that said, it's going to be worth watching. I certainly have my popcorn and my Twitter machine ready to go because,
Excellent.
quite frankly, I live for this kind of stuff. And I would urge our listeners, if you can go through, if you can watch it live, by all means do so, because it's really a glimpse into the future of Quebec.
So Maya Johnson's doing some great interviews with all the various leaders through the course of the week. She had Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, and I want you to hear this clip, because the thing that I mentioned this to you, I think, the other day, you mentioned Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois and Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon really coming out as those who did the best in the last debate. And, of course, both their parties are pitching separation. Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, who kind of walked away from it at the beginning of the campaign, then revealed at the last debate he's prepared to spend almost over $500 million on the next referendum question. So Maya asked him about that. That's a lot of money to devote to something that apparently none of us want to talk about or care about. Here's what he said.
If we want to solve the problems of Quebec, we need to build a new political system because our political system is broken. That's why we need to give the power back to the people, and that's what our Constituent Assembly is about. Giving the power back to the people to write a new constitution for a new Quebec.
To which I react, Jim, by saying, I'm sorry, what?
Well, yeah, but I mean, listen, with all due respect to Monsieur Nadeau-Dubois and indeed Monsieur Saint-Pierre Plamondon, they can say whatever they want. will neither of them. Every indicator says they will neither of them be Premier of Quebec on October 4th. So there's a lot of marketing going on in terms of trying to cull that older, nostalgic separatist vote and to take away that vote's migration to Francois Legault and the CAQ. Yesterday's separatism apparently is today's working within federalism, nationalism. But the bottom line here is, Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, I am a betting man. I put my money on him winding up being head of the official opposition. And it would be intriguing to see, given that role, whether he's going to just sort of sand down the harder edges on a lot of his party's position. I'm talking about these so-called wealth taxes. I'm talking about his rather focused criticisms of Bill 96. It's one thing, when you're campaigning, you do and you say in a lot of things. It's like you're on tour with a rock show, but sooner or later you have that final concert, and then you determine whether or not you're a hit. Well, if he winds up as head of the official opposition, he may find the world, his worldview is going to have to change fast. But all that said, my question is, Monsieur Nadeau-Dubois seems a rather even-handed and fair-minded guy. And listen, I mean, I'm not a supporter of separatism, but I like at least separatists who tell you to your face that they're separatists, as opposed to doing everything but say they're a separatist and yet behave like one. So Nadeau-Dubois, as far as I'm concerned, is straight up. His problem with 96 right now is the way it treats First Nations in Quebec, and certainly that ridiculous requirement that immigrants to this country be obliged to speak, I guess, perfect French or fluent French within a 6-month period. It's completely preposterous. Would he perhaps have a less jaundiced view of Anglophones? Coming into that role as the head of the official opposition, he may well, given that if we end up with another CAQ government, which already loves thumping its chest over all the things it says that it's done, we may have some clashes, and the interests of this community, whether Monsieur Nadeau-Dubois knows it or not, and whether we know it or not, may suddenly become front and center an issue for his party. Part of his mandate, of course, is to oppose the government, and certainly government policy focuses an inordinate amount on the allophone and anglophone populations. So it'll be interesting. But one thing for sure, I think if Nadeau-Dubois says, you know what, I don't think it's a priority, he'll say that up front, as opposed to pretending, I represent all Quebecers, or I oppose the government, but all Quebecers except for you inconvenient Anglos and Allos, because let's face it, we've heard that song before from other parties or parties.
But he did say he would be in the first mandate if he were to win. I mean, not that he's going to win, but still.
Well, yeah, exactly. But this, like I say, whether and I've applied this to other parties, and like the NDP has spent nearly 3/4 of a century saying whatever it wants because it knows it's not going to win the big prize. Right. It knows the best it can hope for is to be the official opposition, which even then happens with the same frequency as an astronomical event. So yeah, you can do and say what you want, but when the real world suddenly peeks in at you on October 4th. It's going to be interesting to see whether, Monsieur Nadeau-Dubois, should he become head of the official opposition, whether his attitude is going to change towards a lot of people and policies in this process.
Jim, 30 seconds. Do you put much credence in the idea that people will make up their mind based on these debates?
To a certain extent, they will. But you know me, I always believe that poll we discussed years ago that said a third of voters make up their mind when they have the ballot pencil in their hand.
All right. James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adamat.